He is a Russian diplomat. He works for Russia at their UN mission in Geneva in Switzerland. He's worked for Russia's foreign ministry, their equivalent of our State Department, for 2 decades. He spent a large part of that time serving as an advisor on nuclear non-proliferation for the Russian government. Today he quit, and he didn't just quit quietly. He turned it up to 11. This is how he told his colleagues. He said, quote, "For 20 years of my diplomatic career, I have seen different turns of our foreign policy, but never have I been so ashamed of my country as on February 24th of this year, the day Russia invaded Ukraine. Quote, this aggressive war unleashed by Putin against Ukraine, and in fact against the entire Western world, is not only a crime against the Ukrainian people, but also perhaps the most serious crime against the people of Russia. Those who conceived this war want only one thing: to remain in power forever, to live in pompous, tasteless palaces, to sail on yachts comparable in tonnage and cost to the entire Russian Navy, enjoying unlimited power and complete impunity. To achieve that, they are willing to sacrifice as many lives as it takes. Thousands of Russians and Ukrainians have already died just for this." He goes on to say, quote, "I studied to be a diplomat and have been a diplomat for 20 years. The foreign ministry has become my home and my family, but I simply cannot any longer share in this bloody, witless, and absolutely needless ignominy." The diplomat's name is Boris Bondarev. His statement also took a direct shot at his boss, Russia's longtime foreign minister, which again is their equivalent of our Secretary of State. He says of their foreign minister that he, quote, "went from a professional and educated intellectual whom many of my colleagues held in such high esteem to a person who constantly broadcasts conflicting statements and who threatens the world with nuclear weapons." And this resignation is fascinating. That final point is very provocative, right? This guy who has just quit, the highest profile diplomatic resignation since Russia started this war, he's a nuclear nonproliferation expert. After he quit today, he told the New York Times he was disturbed by the nonchalance with which some of his fellow Russian diplomats chatted about possible nuclear strikes against the West. That is also a thing that is apparently increasingly happening on state-controlled Russian TV. Mr. Bondarev said of that talk, quote, "They think that if you hit some village in America with a nuclear strike, then the Americans will immediately get scared and run to beg for mercy on their knees." Quote, "That's how many of our people think. And I fear that this is the line that they are passing along to Moscow." Joining us now is Julia Davis. She's a columnist for The Daily Beast. She's the founder of the Russian Media Monitor, which tracks Russian government-controlled television and propaganda. Ms. Davis, I really appreciate you making time to be here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. It's my pleasure.
Mr. Bondarev today raised this issue in his resignation letter and then in follow-up interviews, including with the New York Times, saying the nonchalance and the frequency of discussion about what a good idea it would be to use nuclear weapons, he, as a longtime diplomat, as an expert in the field, finds unnerving. I have to ask, in your monitoring of Russian state television, if you're seeing what he's describing.
Absolutely, and it's so refreshing to hear someone who's an insider like him to address it, because it's become redundant. Every single day they bring up the idea of nuclear strikes against Ukraine or against the West, and it's a nonstop chatter that has been basically normalized at this point. If you could ever normalize anything as abnormal, they've become a larger, more dangerous North Korea in their rhetoric.
And this has changed, to be clear. This isn't a constant. This is something that's changed and become more frequent over the course of this war, over these last 3 months?
Absolutely. They followed Putin's lead when he said if anyone dares to interfere in what's going on in Ukraine, they will be met with such retaliatory action that they have never contemplated or have seen before. And on state television, they are repeatedly reiterating that what he meant was a nuclear strike. And they repeat that with a great sense of pride, that that is one thing that they know the West fears. So they like to constantly repeat it and convince the Russians, or attempt to convince them, that even if they have to die for the motherland, there's no better way to go.
From your monitoring of this type of propaganda, the state-controlled television in Russia, do you feel like that should make the West, that should make the American government, that should make us as people observing this more fearful about the prospect that Putin might choose to use nuclear weapons in some tactical way or in some strategic way. Do you feel like the saber rattling that you're seeing there should make us feel like this is a more acute threat, or do you think this is just a sort of generic sign of belligerence and chest pounding that might not translate directly into a nuclear worry?
We should remain clear-eyed about Russia's capabilities, but at the same time keep in mind that they're saying it for us to be afraid, for the West to stop helping Ukraine. So it's definitely posturing, and we need to see it for what it is. It's the only thing that they could threaten us with. They can't threaten us economically. There's not much they can do to us, basically. So that is one weapon at their disposal that they like to saber rattle with, and their motive is to make us fear them, and that's exactly what they're hoping to do, and that should be the opposite of what we do.
The Russian government has yet to respond to this resignation from Mr. Bondarev today, at least as far as I know. They haven't responded yet. What do you expect their reaction to it will be, or do you think they'll just pretend this didn't happen?
I can safely predict what they will probably do. They usually follow the same exact script in this types of instances. They will say he's a traitor. They will claim that he was offered some sort of a reward by the West and he sold out. And this is the way that they will portray him, especially because his letter was so scathing, because he referred to Navalny's investigations about Lavrov's extended family taking advantage of Oleg Deripaska's luxury properties and Putin's palaces, all of those based on Navalny's investigation. So they will certainly try to claim that he is a quote-unquote traitor simply for exposing their corruption and not being willing to put up with their warmongering and horrific acts of aggression that they have engaged in.
Julia Davis is a columnist at the Daily Beast. She's creator of Russian Media Monitor. Ms. Davis, thanks for making time to be with us tonight. It's really helpful to have you here.
Thank you so much.